So I'll piggyback off of Diana, because I'm the product of those shifting the mentorship. So I'm Kristin Frank. I'm an assistant professor of math ed in the math department, and this is my third year here at Towson, and I've had the opportunity to work with 4 undergraduate students in my 3 years here. So I want to start by saying, like, my research interest is about students' meanings for mathematics, the representations students and teachers use to convey their mathematical understandings. So my research involves a lot of task-based clinical interviews, teaching experiments, and so I'll share why that, and that's not the research I necessarily do with my students. And so there's, with these 4 students, I've kind of done 3 types of projects, or the research has kind of originated from 3 sources. The first was I had a student as an undergraduate learning assistant in my calculus class. And so we developed some activities in the calculus course that we went on to then test a little bit further with high school students, and then presented that work at the Maryland Council of Teachers of Mathematics annual conference in October. The second source of projects comes from Diana's Sums 250 course, where they're kind of finding things that are interesting to them that they want to explore further. And so Diana's really great about capitalizing on when a student expresses an interest and wants to go further with that, and then finding a faculty member in math ed that could then support them. So just 2 weeks ago, she's like, hey, this student expressed interest in this particular area. I think it might align with your course that you're teaching with him. Would you be interested in working with him to develop that further? I would have had no idea that this was an interest of the student and that it aligned really closely with the work we were doing in one of my courses. But that's one of Diana's skill sets, I think, is doing these matchmaking from her course. And so it makes me think that if we want to create opportunities to find students to recruit, that what are the projects we might include in our courses, not in every course necessarily, but across our department, where we can identify these interests to capitalize on. And then the third type of research was I decided I wanted to try having a student help me with task-based interviews and conducting the interviews and doing the analyses. What I found really interesting about that work was, so this was a pre-service secondary math teacher, and the things that she focused on in the interviews were not at all what I would have focused on. But it was really important for her practice. She was noticing the way that the student was talking about her high school math teachers, or the way the student was verbalizing their math understandings and how that might conflict with different content areas, right? And so it wasn't at all aligned with the research question we were trying to investigate, but for her as a pre-service teacher, it was really shifting her understanding of what it meant to be a teacher and her awareness of the student's perspective. So in hindsight, I wish I had run a parallel study where I had studied her, right? And so where I had videotaped and recorded our conversations, where she had a reflection journal or something to create a data source. And so I think that as we work with pre-service teachers, recognizing that we're whatever content area educator, right, that there is opportunities to do research on our pre-service teachers as they're engaging in these activities. So some of the things that I find really rewarding was, for example, this particular teacher or pre-service teacher, she just, it really shifted her awareness of the students that she would be working with. Things that are challenging, the work that they're doing is not necessarily aligned to my research interests, right? They develop a lot of classroom activities that we can publish in kind of state level journals, and really good articles we can publish at a national level. But I had never really done activity development as part of my own research, but it's something that fits in their kind of wheelhouse as pre-service teachers. And then challenges would be also if I'm going to run a parallel study, coordinating the study that the student is doing at the same time as coordinating my study. I haven't quite figured out how to do that, but I think that there's a lot of potential there. The other challenges, Diana was talking a little bit about money versus credit. One of the things that's been nice is the math department recently started a combined Bachelor of Science to Math Masters. And so now the students who had no incentive to take an independent study because it didn't fulfill any of their requirements, now $695 counts towards their combined degree, right? So there's an incentive now for them to take independent study to do research that they might not have had before. So if you have a combined bachelor's, master's, the other challenge has been, how much do I do, right? So the work that the students are bringing is not, again, it's at a different level than the research I did myself, right? And so the question has always been, how much do I push them? How much do I push to make it into something I could publish at a higher level journal versus it being a presentation? And I think that it's varied case by case, depending on how much the student's willing to do. And how motivated the student is at kind of pushing further. And so the way I always take it to the next step for me beyond the activity is looking at the mathematical implications of that activity. So you did it, the students were engaged, the students learned something, but like, what are the implications? What are the things that they might have missed by doing this activity as opposed to a more traditional lesson? And that's kind of how I would up it to higher level work. All right, so why work with students was my last question I was asked. So initially I did it because I thought I needed to do it for tenure, being perfectly honest. But since I've started working with students, I really enjoy it. It's given me a new perspective on my own research interests to look at it with fresh eyes, has been really enlightening for myself. And then also working with pre-service teachers, I think it gives them skills for doing research in their own practice once they get into the classroom. What does it mean for my pre-service teacher to do research as a second-year teacher, right? Once they get some things under their belt. And so I think that that's really important for them to maintain being high-quality teachers in the classroom. That's it.